tuning into STL TV for our live coverage of the general election 2021. I'm Ivy Hartman.
And I'm Jade Harrell. Good evening.
Well, you know what? We're here. We're excited. We're on the edge of our seats.
Yes.
This is a highly anticipated election that's happening right now.
Absolutely. So many things for the voters to consider and so many things on their ballot that they're going to make a historic decision today.
It is a historic one. The big ticket item, of course, is the mayoral race. Of course, we've got two candidates. They're very similar. They're both progressive, and it's going to be a tough decision to make.
Absolutely, and they both are leaders, natural leaders. They are both they have long-standing careers of service. They're both mothers with lived experience as working moms.
And whoever will be the winner of this election will be the 47th mayor of the city of St. Louis.
Yes, in addition to that, there is an aldermanic race that determines how many will remain standing after this election.
Yep, those are in the odd wards. And of course, Comptroller Darlene Green is running uncontested on the ballot.
We hope she does well.
Of course, always.
And there are propositions that MSD has on the ballot.
Well, there were a lot of those. So there's Prop Y, and then of course a lot of different things to their charter. And then Prop E. Now that's a biggie. So that's the 1% earnings tax for the city of St. Louis is on the ballot. Something we have to vote on every 5 years. It's a big deal because, it draws in about a third of our revenue.
And the fella that's responsible for that, who put that proposition forward, I recently had the opportunity to speak with him. He is the collector of revenue for the city of St. Louis, Greg FX Daly, about Proposition E. Let's take a look at what he had to say. Tuning in to STL TV. I'm Jade Harrell, and today I have in the studio with me the collector of revenue for the city of St. Louis, Mr. Gregory FX Daly. Thanks for stopping by, Mr. Daly.
Jade, thanks for having me. Very much appreciate it.
It is my true pleasure. He's here to talk with us and inform us a bit more about Proposition E, which will be on the April 6th general election ballot. So, Mr. Daly, tell us more about the earnings tax and how important it is to our city's budget.
It's extremely important, Jade. It's the 1% earnings tax generates about $240 million a year, which translates into about 36% of the budget. These monies go directly into general revenue. When I say general revenue, that pretty much means everybody participates in general revenue. If you're driving down your street and you got a pothole, you want to call Citizen Service Bureau, that money goes to filling that pothole. Deals with the fire department, police department, tree trimming, parks, everything. So $240 million, big deal for the city of St. Louis.
Absolutely. So who pays the tax? Who pays the earnings tax?
The earnings tax is that 1% tax that anybody who works or lives in the city of St. Louis is required to pay. If you do not work, if you're retired or if you're between jobs, you don't pay. It is based simply on the folks that are working. The interesting thing about the earnings tax is that 70% of the people that pay the earnings tax don't live in the city of St. Louis. They live in St. Louis County or one of the surrounding areas, and because they work in the city, they pay that 1%. So 70% of the earnings tax is paid by people who do not live in the city.
Interesting. Okay. Would it be possible to make up for lost earnings tax with other taxes like property tax or sales tax?
Boy, Jade, it's 240 is a big number, and I can only assume that if that number would go away, if $240 million would go away every year, personal property taxes, real estate taxes, sales taxes would skyrocket. And the issue there would be then folks that live in the city of St. Louis would be solely responsible for that. And we wouldn't get any contributions from the people who live outside the city. So it would be definitely a burden on our residents.
Mr. Daly, thank you for stopping by and sharing the information.
Jade, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. It's my true pleasure. And what a compelling case he makes. It's going to be interesting to see what the voters thought.
I agree. And it's interesting to me. I love that he pointed out so many different points on that. But the thing is that there's 60% of the people who are generating that income are actually from the county and from Illinois, and not actually from the city of St. Louis, but that's who's voting on it.
Well, they must have some friends in the city.
We need that money, and we need to keep you informed of all the things that are going on, not only on the ballot, but also important topics here in St. Louis. So throughout the night, we'll not only provide live updates of the election results, but we'll be joined in studio by guests that will cover some important topics that are impacting our community, including crime, COVID-19, mental health, racial division, and education. But first, it's time to check in with Andy, who's at the Tashara Jones watch party. Hi, Andy.
Well, thank you so much, Jade and Ivy. Yes, I'm out here at the Tashara Jones headquarters, the Omega Center, where we're having an outdoor event. They're asking people to stay in their cars throughout the evening. We'll see how that goes, especially if we're getting good news throughout the night. But we'll be trying to keep you up to date here with information and hopefully interviewing some officials. But at the moment, still waiting for a capacity crowd here. The parking lot about half full. So back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much, Andy.
Well, then we're going to check in with Tim, who is at Kara Spencer's watch party.
I'm here at Kara Spencer's watch party, or what she hopes will be her celebration party at the end of the night, at the Mahler Ballroom parking lot here on Washington Boulevard. So far, there's about just under 100 people here at the watch party, and it's a lively crowd, enthusiastic crowd. And while they continue to trickle in, let me just give you some background on Kara Spencer. She's 42 years old. She has served on the Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis since 2015, representing Ward 20. She grew up in South St. Louis City and St. Louis County, earned her Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics from Truman State University. Now, during her first term in office, she was the primary sponsor of legislation which enacted stricter campaign finance laws. Spencer also helped stop the St. Louis Lambert International Airport from being privatized. Now, one of the things I picked up on when I interviewed Kara last March, just after the primary, her primary win, was her enthusiasm, her energy, and the way that she engaged with reporters and other people. And one of the things she said to me was that trust in government is at an all-time low, and that she wanted to bring some fresh new ideas, change the momentum, breathe a little bit of life into this great old city, as she called it. That made me chuckle. But St. Louis is a great old city. I looked it up. It's about 257 years old. But it'll be interesting to see if voters also picked up on that enthusiasm and that excitement, and will choose Kara as the person to lead them in this sort of new chapter in the city of St. Louis. We'll have more details as they become available, as results come in, and hopefully we'll talk to a few people as the night goes on. Reporting from Midtown in St. Louis, back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks so much, Tim. That was very in-depth. We really appreciate all the info you gave us on that one. It's an exciting time, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And they look like the energy is just raising up and brewing there where they are at the parties.
I know it. I know it. You know, a couple weeks ago, both of us had a chance to sit down with both mayoral candidates and find out what they bring to the table as mayor. But I really have a few things I wanted to talk through about Treasurer Tashara Jones in terms of some of her platforms and what she's standing for. I know Tim has gone over some of the Kara Spencer, and you'll get a chance to do that in a second. But some things that I'd like to highlight are that Tashara brings experience to the table. So not just has she been serving the city as a treasurer since 2012, and the city really seems to support her, and she's doing great in that. She actually was in the Missouri House of Representatives for a while, so she's done that. And then she started, this was a great legacy she's left behind. She started this college savings program for students. Every kindergartner got a college savings, and already it's built up $1 million in savings. I think that is putting where your money, literally, where your mouth is, right? And then, of course, she's got a public safety platform. So she's looking at a lot of different levels of that, and part of that is maybe bringing in a public safety expert from outside of our current system to try to look at how to solve some of those problems, maybe look at retention in terms of enticing police officers to stay and live in the communities in which they're policing. So there's that connection and putting the public back in public safety.
Absolutely. Well, we are certainly glad that you had a chance to talk with her, and now we get to see what that conversation was about.
Check it out. The city of St. Louis is electing a new mayor this year, and here at STL TV, we want to help you make an informed decision. So we're providing profiles of all the candidates. Here's a closer look at Tashara Jones.
Tashara Jones is no stranger to elected office. She has served 2 terms in the Missouri House of Representatives and is currently the City of St. Louis Treasurer, a position she's held since 2013, and one she says uniquely prepares her to be mayor.
It's a citywide office, just like the mayor, however, not as stressful as mayor, I might add. But, you know, the leading a staff of hundreds of people, managing a budget of millions of dollars, making sure that we're being good stewards of government funds. These are all lessons that I learned in the treasurer's office. Also, how our city works, where the money goes. And we need money to do just about everything in St. Louis. So those lessons I learned in the treasurer's office and excited to take them to the mayor's office.
Lessons, leadership and policy making, all experiences Jones believes will lead the city forward.
While I was treasurer, I opened the Office of Financial Empowerment, which was a program that I saw actually in San Francisco and Chicago, and called those respective treasurers to learn more about how they did it, and then brought it to St. Louis, tweaked it for our environment and let it roll. And then also we have the College Kids Children's Savings Account program, which gives a $50 college savings account to every kindergartner entering a public school in the city of St. Louis. We have over 18,000 children with over $1.2 million saved for their futures. I want to expand these programs to the masses. Also work with our county counterparts because I believe that, you know, financial literacy and empowerment is one of those things that helps everyone, no matter what party you are, no matter your background, your color of your skin.
Ensuring St. Louis is an equitable place for everyone is a big part of Jones's platform.
I believe that when we put racial equity at the center, because St. Louis is one of the most hyper-segregated cities in the nation, when we put racial equity at the center, everyone succeeds. So we're going to be paying strict attention to our policies, our procedures, our spending, and putting racial equity at the center of all of those decisions.
I'm glad you pointed that out. Racial equity is, like you said, at the pinnacle here in our city. Do you see another challenge that's really staring you in the face as you if you transition into being mayor?
We cannot ignore our reputation as being one of the most violent cities in America. And we need to put the public back in public safety. And what that means to me is, number one, declaring gun violence as a public health crisis and using everyone at the table, our flagship universities, our business community, philanthropy, faith, civic leaders, everyone at the table, not just in St. Louis City, but in the region, to address crime and public safety as a region, not just as a city. Because when people look at St. Louis, they don't see the difference between St. Louis City and Chesterfield or St. Clair County. They think St. Louis. And so how can we change the narrative of how people see us in the country? And also, you know, we need to make sure that we're deploying the right type of professional to the right type of call. Studies done in the North Patrol District show that almost 50% of calls could be answered by someone other than police. So how do we staff our public safety department or partner with other organizations to make sure that we can provide that type of care when people call 911? And how do we staff our 911 operators and train them to recognize those types of calls?
So all of this experience and this lived experience that you've had in your personal life, what do you think is the best, the attribute you have that served you the best in your life in general, but also as a public servant?
I think that being a mom is the number one lived experience that brings a different viewpoint to this office. And I'm not saying that, you know, our current mayor is also a mom, and I'm pretty sure that she leads from that place as well. But being a single mom, I think, is a little bit different in that we are mom, dad, and everything for our children. And there are a lot of women who either by choice or by other circumstance are raising their their children by themselves. And I want them to know that they can still succeed, they can still achieve their dreams. And all they have to do is make sure they have a good network of support around them. And the network or the village will help raise the child.
This is Jones's second run for mayor. Make sure you also check out the other candidate profiles on the STL TV YouTube channel.
Ivy, what an exceptional interview and conversation. I feel like I really got a sense of what she was determined to do.
I was really honored to get to talk to her. It was the first time I've actually gotten to talk with her, and she's definitely got her finger on the pulse. She's got realistic expectations and has a great lived experience, as you mentioned before.
Absolutely. Well, I had a conversation with Kara Spencer, and before I had that conversation or share that conversation with you, I just want to share a couple of things that really stood out to me from our conversation. And one is that she's a real goal getter, and her determination to have a better St. Louis has her setting what she calls sustainable and practical goals. She is also very determined to listen, to lead, and to act. And where it comes to conversations about who can serve a minority majority community, that is one of her highest priorities is to listen, to learn, and to lead. And she's also looking to build a system, a network with the community in order to improve the community. So on her platform Against Crime, she is results driven, and she is also trying to make sure she addresses the racial divide. So let's check out my conversation with Kara Spencer. A new mayor is soon to take over the reins of St. Louis come this April. One of the candidates vying for this opportunity is current alderwoman of the 20th Ward, Kara Spencer. Being the mayor of a city is a lot of responsibility. Why do you want this position?
I love this city. We have such incredible assets here in St. Louis, but we have a lot of structural issues. And I'm ready to take our city in a new direction, one that can position us for real growth for the first time in my lifetime, quite frankly.
Well, you're among a few candidates for this role. What makes you stand out? How are you different?
First and foremost, I'm different because I bring a breath of fresh air, a fresh start to City Hall. I'm the only candidate who has not run for this position before, and some of my opponents have run several times.
What do you feel are the most important qualities of a good leader?
Good leader is somebody who sits down and listens, most especially with people with whom they disagree. I have been a consensus builder since my first day at the Board of Aldermen, working with a diverse coalition of aldermen and other regional leaders. That's why I've been able to get a significant amount of bills through the Board of Aldermen, legislative efforts that are citywide in nature and much bigger than just impacting my ward.
What do you feel is the most pressing issue or problem facing our city right now, and how would you make it better?
The number one issue by far is violent crime. And that's why I put together a comprehensive 10-step plan that will start to address violence on day one. I worked with experts across the nation who have been successful in other cities at addressing violence. And if elected mayor, I'm going to bring those practices and programs here to St. Louis.
All candidates pledge racial equity as a cornerstone in their decision making. But what will you do differently than the other candidates to ensure this?
I've pledged racial equity and I have walked that walk by passing real significant policies that have made a real difference in the lives of St. Louisans, starting with passing the toughest municipal legislation in the nation, reining in predatory payday lending. When I learned that the biggest disparity in health outcomes in residents in the city of St. Louis was in emergency level visits for asthma, I went to work and brought in an air quality control monitoring program to the city of St. Louis for the first time in over a decade to make sure that asbestos and other contaminants aren't destroying the air that our residents breathe.
You're known for your fight against special interests. Why has it been so important?
Lambert is our city's single largest physical asset. It is owned by the taxpayers of St. Louis, and it's important that what happens next to it is decided by the residents of the city of St. Louis and not special interests. Holding slumlords like Paul McKee accountable. I was the first alderman in the city of St. Louis to pass a measure to do just that. And so I think it's important that we not just be on the right side of that issue and don't just tweet about it, but get to work doing real things, passing real policy initiatives that make a real difference in people's lives.
A major problem is how to improve the relationship between police and our citizens.
I think that rebuilding trust is a key component to a healthier lived experience for both our police and our residents. First and foremost, we need to pick up every 911 call. The fact that almost a third of our 911 calls are answered currently via recording is unbelievable, and it's really unacceptable. It really breaks down the fabric of the trust between our community and our police.
What else will you do to rebuild St. Louis post-coronavirus?
I think the most important thing here really is the transparency with the general public and reporting on what our government is actually doing and how we are distributing the resources that we do have. We've got to make sure that our local small businesses are up and running and that our citizens feel safe going in and patronizing them.
Thank you for your time and responses and your good work, Alderwoman Spencer, and success to you in your campaign.
Thank you.
We will have profiles of all the mayoral candidates on our social media accounts. Be sure and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, and be ready to vote for the next St. Louis mayor in April. For STL TV, I'm Jade Harrell.
She definitely came across like very caring and genuine and approachable in that conversation.
I absolutely felt so, which made it very comfortable to talk about what are very difficult issues that she has to face, especially talking about how she wants to help heal the racial divide and the conflict in our community, and especially how we can really get to this, to address the crime. Earlier this week, though, our producers had the opportunity to speak with St. Louis University political science professor, Dr. Kenneth Warren, about his thoughts on Proposition D, the racial divide in how voters typically vote, and who he thinks will win the mayor's race. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
The purpose was to do away with a partisan primary. I don't think it actually did that, except in name, because I think that all the people pretty much knew whether the candidates were Republican or Democrat. And you had, two Joneses in the race. Tashara, of course, was a Democrat, and the other Jones was a Republican, but technically ran nonpartisan. This person resented the fact that leading up to that debate, he kept on being referred to as a Republican in the race in order to really bias people's vote against him, simply because St. Louis is a very, very Democratic city. Democrats for president, for instance, normally get high in the 70s to over 80% of the vote in the city of St. Louis. So I think changing it to nonpartisan might work in the long run, but in the short run, I don't think it affected at all the primary results in March. Historically, in elections across the United States in inner cities, is that you'll see an Italian bloc vote, a Polish bloc vote, you'll see a black bloc vote. You won't see as much of a white bloc vote because whites are much more diverse, of course. And so you have whites in all sorts of different communities. I feel uncomfortable talking about this because you're talking about voting almost exclusively on racial lines. But unfortunately, electoral behavior scholars know that this is the case. Ethnic groups, racial groups have voted in a bloc forever. I think that Tashara Jones will prevail, given what I observed in her, not only in her treasurer's race, she won, easily, but she also did very well in the primary better than any other candidate by far. The reason that Kara Spencer is in the race is she did come in second, but really, relatively speaking, she came in a distant second to Jones. Kara Spencer did not do well in many wards, while Tashara Jones did very well in all wards, in the 28 wards except 3 of them. And so I would say that Tashara Jones is certainly the odds-on favorite to win the general election.
Wow, what an intriguing and interesting analysis, study, and prediction.
I agree. He's been doing it 30 years, so he's got some valid points there and probably some interesting ideas about things. And
we'll see if he's right.
I know, we will see. That will be interesting to see about voter turnout, as well as how the election actually turns out. And speaking of getting into the psyche of voters, you know, a lot of money and time and energy goes into ads for the campaign. And we have the spots for both Kara and Tashara Jones. Let's take a look at those.
Kara Spencer. I'm a single mom, an alderman, and a St. Louisan. For the last 5 years, I've represented one of the most diverse neighborhoods in the city of St. Louis, and I've never been afraid of a tough fight or a difficult conversation. I'm ready to lead St. Louis in a new direction. In order for us to move forward, we have to acknowledge the broken systems of our past, the divisiveness that has stifled growth, and the racial inequities that have held us all back. As the alderman of a challenged neighborhood, I've worked with local business owners and neighbors to transform vacant properties into thriving neighborhoods. And I've stood up to special interests that try to privatize our single largest asset, our airport. I want to take that energy citywide, starting with addressing violence and revitalizing our neighborhoods, many of which have seen disinvestment for decades. The only way to change is to have open and honest leadership that prioritizes the needs of every family in St. Louis. We have to throw out cronyism and corruption. I will be the mayor of good government and transparency and get to work for you.
I'm Tashara Jones. I was born and raised in St. Louis. Every single day, both as a mother and as the city treasurer, I work to make sure that the St. Louis we hand over to the next generation is better than the one we inherited. And that means facing up to our past. That's what I do, what I've always done. I had no choice. 20 years ago, I lost my mother to cancer, and I was barely an adult. And life came apart at the seams. It took 10 years to rebuild. I worked hard, but I was also lucky. I had a father who loved me, a grandmother who prayed for me, and a family that wouldn't let me fail. Not everyone is that lucky. Where does a child go when their caretaker gets sick with COVID? What does a mother do when a stray bullet erases one more innocent child's future? How does a person live when one more medical bill empties their life savings? All these questions go unanswered while the city goes about business as usual. We need to say no to business as usual. We need to say yes to the St. Louis we could have. Say yes to a St. Louis that's ready to tackle the 21st century. You should be able to succeed here, regardless of your skin color, who you love, your documentation status, or what language you speak. Regardless of how you worship, what neighborhood you live in, your school district, or your zip code. I want to build a city where everyone feels welcome. And I know that's what we can create together. I'm running for mayor of the city of St. Louis because I believe in our potential to usher in St. Louis's next era, to create our St. Louis, united, strong, confident, and equitable. A St. Louis that brings us together instead of dividing us. Tashara Jones for mayor for a new St. Louis.
really inspiring ads, I'll have to say, the both of them. They have positive messaging. They are very diverse, the both of them, and they're far-reaching, and they spent money to be far-reaching.
That is so well said. And you know what? So one of the people behind that reach is Percy Green with Tashara Jones's campaign. And so we're actually going to have a chance in just a minute to meet with Percy Green, but I love that you pointed out that it was very very similar in there, and showed a really cohesive St. Louis, right?
It did.
And a happy St. Louis, which
An
I think
example of what they say they want us to achieve.
that's a great way of putting it. A new St. Louis or a revitalized St. Louis and things like that.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a special interview with Percy Green from Tashara Jones's campaign. Andy, what do you got?
Well, the anticipation is building here at the Tashara Jones headquarters at the Omega Center. A lot more people have made their way into the parking lot. There's a lot more cars, and actually some people are starting to step outside of their cars, expecting maybe more of a historical feel to this tonight. And alongside me here is the former chairman of the Action Committee, Percy Green. Tell me, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm about as good as to be expected.
And could you tell me what brought you here tonight? Are you supporting Tashara?
Oh, by all means. I'm here because I would like to witness this historical event of her being the first Black female mayor for the city of St. Louis.
What do you want to see her tackle in her first 100 days?
Well, the economics of the city. I would like to see the rate of poverty to decrease. And of course, I think that if the economics is dealt with extensively, we'll see crime going down.
Now, whether or not she wins here tonight, what do you want the next mayor, either maybe it's Cara, what would you want Cara to focus on should she get in?
Well, I like to see economics dealt with regardless as to who is mayor. I've been advocating that for any number of years, for practically over 50 years. So I haven't changed as it relates to that.
Is there anything in St. Louis you think needs to be tackled immediately?
Well, it's certainly taxation. I think that the rich should be paying their fair share of taxes. And I think that more and better paying jobs are needed to be directed at Black males.
And so when you're looking at the city overall, what do you think you need to do to help the north side?
Jobs, employment, businesses needs to be developed in the north side that will pay decent salaries, $15 plus.
Do you think is there an idea what you think we can do with education?
Well, education is something that's important too. But first things first, we have to give youngsters their parents by way of a decent paying job for their a decent paying job for the parents, and allow for the parents to be able to direct the behavior of the kids.
Well, thank you so much, Percy. Good luck tonight. Hopefully you are going to experience a historic moment here.
I'm hoping so. I think so. You know.
Excellent. Well, as you heard, we're expecting history here tonight. Again, the parking lot is starting to get a little more full. There's a little bit of buzz happening right now. So back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Andy. That is so exciting. I am so thrilled that he got to talk with Percy Green. That's so cool.
And you could see the smile. You can sense the smile underneath the mask. I know this man is committed to community, has stood for equity and inclusion for a very long time. So this is probably very special to him.
Really, really excited. So a lot of great important things to talk about, how we can heal the city and bring some revitalization to it. And now that we've heard from both mayoral candidates and we've heard from political science professor Dr. Kenneth Warren, let's hear from some voters. So we went out and had a chance to find out what issues some of the voters would like to see the next mayor tackle.
Leadership that not only hears my voice here in the community, in addition to the higher voices, but I want you to be connected to my issues as well. My issues is just as important as someone that's writing a check.
We're going to have to get a handle on this gun crime in St. Louis, obviously including homicide, of course.
I think togetherness is what we need instead of this division. A lot of things as St. Louisans we know that need to be tackled, and it can't be a one-person job. It has to be St. Louis within itself.
High crime rates that are in East St. Louis, and probably the BLM movement is also a thing that they should probably bring up to the city and show that they support it, because that is a huge thing for a lot of people.
Divisiveness and racism in the city. I think I heard that there are 2 different police unions, one for black and one for white. I think I heard that in the debate the other day, which shocked me and surprised me.
The crime around the city. It's been a lot of crime, a lot of killing of kids and women, so it's become a scary place to travel around right now. And also with the crime that they probably kind of tie together is the traffic, the running of the red lights and the stop signs.
The economy has to come back. I don't care what the mayor is, which one it is, but if they're not trying to get the economy back, we gonna fail. So that's from the mayor on to the president. So that's my main focus for the mayor. What are you gonna do for the residents and the business owners so we can get back to, quote, the normal?
Well, a common theme in there is curbing violence.
Absolutely, and we can tell from what we're hearing directly from the people that this is where their hearts and passions are, and they want something done at this point right away. It's a very common concern among our voters.
Absolutely, and we'll come back to talk a little bit more about crime and how we're going to curb that with Cure Violence in just a moment. But first, let's go check in with Tim Lampley, who's at Kara Spencer's campaign. Tim?
We're back here live at Kara Spencer's watch party, or should I say, hopefully her celebration party at the end of the night. That's exactly what her supporters out here are hoping. I'm standing now with Charles Wilson, one of her supporters, who's going to tell us why he's out here tonight and a little bit of a background on you. How you doing, Charles?
I'm doing fine today. How you doing?
Just fine. Tell me a little bit of your background and why you're out here tonight.
Well, I worked for quite a while for the city of St. Louis. I'm the former director of the city marshal's office under Vince Shamore. Also, I'm here personally as myself, a very strong supporter of the next mayor of the city of St. Louis. And I'm here to show my support as I've done all day. I volunteered to work on a polls for her, and I'm grateful that she gave me the opportunity to light that fire again.
What are the key issues that you think Kara Spencer will be able to address if she is elected mayor for the city of St. Louis?
By her being elected to the ward that she represents, a very diversified ward, Kara has brought a lot to the table. She's not been scared up and speak in the mic down at the Board of Aldermen. She has voiced her opinions, not for herself personally, but for her constituents. She will be a young, vibrant, a touch of change that the city of St. Louis has been designed for a long time. I think she's taken the city into a new era, and that was inclusion, and I think she'll be everything, or mostly everything that she states she's going to do. But she got to remember, she can't do it by herself. She has to have a board of former worker colleagues who will help her succeed in this task.
She will indeed be one of the youngest at 42 if she is elected mayor. And thank you, Charles, for that information here. And the crowd continues to trickle in. It's growing. It's probably, I would say, a couple of hundred by now here at the Mahler Ballroom parking lot. We will give you more details as they become available and as results begin to trickle in, and hopefully we'll have more people to talk to. So for now, back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Tim, so much for bringing that in. And before we went to Tim, we were talking about what was really on the minds and hearts of today's voters, and that is the rise in crime, unprecedented rise in crime that we've been seeing here in the city of St. Louis, and it needs to be addressed. And according to an article in the Washington Examiner, the city saw the highest homicide rate in 50 years at 87 killings per 100,000 residents, resulting in one of the highest murder rates ever recorded in U.S. city.
And actually, in 2019, the Board of Aldermen voted to give $5 million to the Cure Violence program in hopes to cure the violence. To further discuss these statistics and to provide possible solutions, we're joined by Reverend Charles Norris from the Cure Violence Steering Committee. Thank you for joining us today, Reverend.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit more about Cure Violence. When we got started, give a little background to some of us in terms of when you got started and where we are at this point.
Okay, well, Cure Violence came to the city. It's an international program. It's in over 500 places around the world. It uses a public health approach to reach in and look at violence as a public health issue. Because people witness this. That's the problem. Trauma people have. And then there are people that have lived their lives in generational trauma. I mean, we have to be quite honest at the level of violence that we see in our society from time to time. This has continued to escalate. And so where we are now is not something that just happened over the last 5 or 10 years. This is something that has been happening for hundreds of years, depending on your ethnicity. And so in the African American community, when we see this level of violence, Cure Violence looks to first to intervene in the violence, and then secondly, to try to stop the spread of it, and then lastly, to try to change some behaviors associated with it. And so Cure Violence uses a series of workers, some outreach workers, as well as community specialists, community outreach workers, as well as violence interrupters. And so within we target high risk neighborhoods. So it's not just at risk, but high risk. And so these are the individuals that are more than likely to be having witnessed violence and then retaliate with violence. And so it becomes a part of the culture of some of these neighborhoods.
Sure. Have you gotten a chance to see it work? Is it effective? How is it making a difference with the numbers?
Yes, well, because of the numbers that you stated, they are so high. It takes a moment to really try to step back and see this. But we have seen it right now. The Board of Aldermen approved the program to go into 3 neighborhoods. Okay. Hamilton Heights, Goodfellow neighborhoods, Walnut Park, and also Dutchtown. And so in these areas, we have seen some reduction in some of the violence that has occurred. Now the news, because it happens, it's the news. So we're all focused on those things. But in every one of these instances, in the catchment area that they're operating, when there's an incident that occurs, you have outreach workers that get out to the scene. You have interrupters that get to the people, that talk to them. Police are not involved in this because often there's information that is going on about what has transpired. And so people know who shot who. I mean, just like I grew up knowing, hearing from my parents and grandparents during the days of Prohibition. They said everybody knew who made the alcohol. The police could come at any time they wanted to. But it was one of those things people just kind of kept quiet. And so here, these people often are former gang members, former or ex-felons. These are some of the individuals that are hired as these violence interrupters and as these community outreach workers. So they know the neighborhood, they know the streets, they have some kind of credibility where they can talk to these people, and they start to build a rapport with these individuals to try to talk them into not to retaliate. And then we even go as far as that they have people to go to the hospital as well, because some of the retaliation and some of the violence continues even towards the hospital. And so this is having an impact in some of these catchment areas, and we have been seeing a slight decrease.
What do you think what are the goals at this point, in terms of incrementally? This is not, when you say cure violence, we think of a nice Band-Aid, wrap it all up and send it out and it's fixed, right?
Exactly.
And so when we talk timeline-wise, what's realistic here?
Well, there's 2 things. One, we're talking about the scale. We're in 3 neighborhoods.
Right. We need to, right.
3, okay. That's $5 million, okay? Now, so we start talking about the scale of this. We're looking at the highest risk neighborhoods right now. And so, one, we definitely know this program needs to be expanded. first and foremost. Secondly, as it gains credibility with the neighborhood, then that will start to reduce it even more. And more importantly, we start reducing the number of incidents that people see. I mean, when it occurs, people see a body laying in the street. Even if it's a blanket over the person, people see all of this that is happening, and this is triggered in their memory. That's a traumatic experience for many individuals, and so having fewer incidents of that helps. And so to answer your question, well, when you start looking at change in organizations, you start looking at 4 to 7 years to change an organization. When we start talking about an individual, it depends on the individual. If you've lived in an environment for generations, you know, and this trauma has been passed on to be passed on, heck, if we're looking for just one person that's gonna say, look, I'm gonna step out of it. I'm not gonna live this life. I'm not gonna be a shooter. I'm not going to retaliate that, you know, you killed my cousin, so now I'm gonna kill your cousin and your nephew, or, you know, some of these things that happen. So getting people to step back and think. And so part of what happens, there are wraparound services that are needed. People need jobs. People need some support in other areas, whether it be education. They want to do something different, but what are we offering them to make their life a little different? You know, and so this is part of what takes a little while to.
Absolutely, and in order to get to a cure similar to the pandemic, we've got to inoculate, and the folks that are working are like a good, healthy immune system. Huh?
Exactly, and these are people that have turned their lives around.
Absolutely, and I believe that it will catch on. Who wouldn't want to see that manifest? Reverend Norris, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
We could talk for a long time.
And
thank
I
you
plan
very
to
much.
at some point because there's going to be plenty of work to do. But thank you for sharing that information about the Cure Violence program. And now we're going to hear some more from our concerned voters, taking it back to the streets.
Let's do it.
Fixing the roads and the sidewalks, especially in the Central West End area. It's a really nice area, but one of the downfalls is definitely the streets and like the sidewalks. Makes it more safe. I've seen a lot of people get injured, cars, tires getting punctured as well. Mine has. So I think that's definitely something that should get fixed.
I think the next mayor should address the issue of crime in the city of St. Louis. It's on the rampant. And I know me, every morning I turn on the news, I'm hearing about someone getting murdered in the city. And I know we're a much better city than that.
Interacting with the neighborhoods as far as getting out, meeting everyone know who they are, what they about, what they doing, just seeing their face more.
I think we should work on getting more vaccines for the people in St. Louis who really want them, because I know that there's a lot of people who want them and are really struggling to get them.
Small businesses to be supported as much as possible. And I don't know what ways that is just yet, but small businesses, because St. Louis is just built on so much. We're not big. We're a big, small city. So everybody here counts. Everybody's dollar counts. And we just need small businesses to be supported at every cost, all the time.
I think she should address the crime in the streets. That's the first of all. The most important thing is the crime in the streets. And helping to keep the north side clean, you know, send more forestry guys to come out and do a better job at keeping the neighborhood clean, picking up the paper and all that. But the people have to help too, though.
Mental health awareness, for sure. I think that's one of the most important things going on right now, and I feel like a lot of people dismiss it, and there's a lot more than people know, and people need to be more understanding, for sure.
One thing I really love about seeing the on the street segments and the conversations with community is to see how engaged and how informed our community is, and how much these issues matter enough for them to get out. You can see how they engaged their neighbors, their friends, and rallied around being a part of this decision tonight.
Absolutely. There's a lot that goes into making sure that we address everybody's issues, that people feel like they're heard.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I think that's what a lot of our candidates are trying to really hone in on. And I'm excited. I'm hoping that we have some results here coming up pretty quickly.
It's coming. It's coming.
But we actually are we're really lucky because Andy Ruzicka, our very own Andy Ruzicka, is at Tashara Jones's watch party with Annie Rice, alderwoman of the 8th Ward. All right, Andy.
Well, we're back here at the headquarters, and guess what? There is even more people out here hanging out. The crowd is really feeling a fun vibe. I think we're expecting some good news. But with me here is Alderwoman Rice. Thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Now, you do support Tashara Jones. Can you tell me just what brought you out to her platform? What speaks to you about it?
Sure. I think that Tashara's leadership, her experience, the office of mayor is such a managerial role. You've got to handle all of the staff, all the city services. She's got experience doing that. She showed in the treasurer's office that she can take an office that needed some work and turn it around and really save the city a whole bunch of money doing it and get a whole team of people who are excited to be behind her. And I'm excited for that for the whole city. So that and I want to say it's a continuation of a movement, right? We are the movement for Black lives, the movement to address racial injustice and move towards racial equity in the city of St. Louis. Like, this is culminating in this race right now. This is the next step forward.
Now, as we've seen, some of the old guard has changed here in the city government. A lot of what you would say maybe moderates have kind of started to move out. And this election is kind of more progressive. How do you feel about now having a progressive in the mayoral seat?
Oh, I think it'll be fantastic. Either way, tonight we'll get a progressive in the mayor's seat. And I think that bodes well for the people of St. Louis. We have been mobilizing our activist organizations, our unions, folks that are really working for the best for the people are the people who are leading tonight. And that's exciting. That's exciting for me because that's the way that I want to serve. And it's exciting to have leadership from the top down that's moving that direction.
What do you think is one of the first issues that the next mayor should tackle immediately?
Yeah, I think this week we saw that we've got to get the jail under control, and not under control in that the inmates the detainees are doing something wrong. It's that it's not safe. It's not safe for folks to be in there. We need to figure out what's going on with the courts and get that stuff started again. The staff and the detainees need to be safe in that building, and the 911 center. I think those articles that came out talking about that's a big deal, and that plays into the cops and clinicians, that plays into the right person answering the 911 call. How do we get that staffed? How do we get that supported so that the people of St. Louis know that somebody's going to answer the call when they call?
How do you feel about Tashara's chances here tonight? We're still getting some results in. I think I've heard about 28% is reported.
Yeah, I mean, I still feel good. I think the energy out here in the city has been great. I think folks are excited. We're mobilized. There are a number of different organizations that have been pushing for Tashara for mayor, and my voters were energized and excited to come out and vote for Tashara, so I'm hopeful tonight.
Excellent. Any final thoughts on the city of St. Louis as a whole, where we need to go?
I mean, absolutely. We're at such an inflection point, it feels like, and this tonight is going to make a world of difference to folks, but it's about tomorrow as well. It's about the next steps. It's about all of us coming together and really getting that work done, because it's going to take all of us, whoever wins tonight.
Well, thank you so much, Alderwoman Rice. Appreciate it. Hopefully we'll get some good news, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Back to you guys in the studio.
Well, thank you so much, Andy, and thanks for the time, Andy Rice. That was really fantastic. Covered a lot of different topics. And speaking of topics, our next topic that we'd like to touch on, and we have a special guest with us, is something that's touched the lives of everyone around the world since last year, and that is the pandemic.
Our hearts go out to the families who lost loved ones due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And I have to say, we've all been impacted in some way, despite the darkness, though, of the pandemic and what it's brought to our community. There is a light at the end of the tunnel as vaccine distributions continue to roll out and everyone remains committed to wearing masks and social distancing.
Yeah, and COVID has also exposed another issue which needs to be addressed. And we've all heard the phrase, it's okay to not be okay, right? It's actually normalized the stigma of mental health. And according to an article in WebMD Health News in 2020, Americans reported high levels of emotional distress, specifically from COVID-19, levels that some experts warned could lead to a national mental health crisis.
And to discuss how to address mental health and what resources are available is Jama Dodson, Executive Director of the St. Louis Mental Health Board. Thank you for joining us. I'm a fan.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Tell us more about the St. Louis Mental Health Board.
Okay, well, I'm really excited about being here tonight, and I'm excited about the election results that are going to be coming up. So I won't be able to sleep tonight, I'm afraid. But the St. Louis Mental Health Board is an organization. We're a taxing authority, and we have 2 property taxes, one for mental health, which is our original tax, and one for children's services, both of which are pretty much related to behavioral health or social services. And we give out a significant amount of money to our city, to nonprofits that serve people in the city. Last year, we gave out about $13 million, and we had 61 partner agencies that do the programs for our community. So I think there's a lot more out there than people even realize sometimes.
Sure.
Really do.
It's wonderful to reinvest in the community and help moving things forward. And we talk about how we had somebody from Cure Violence on. We were talking about trauma and mental health being a big part of healing a system, right?
Yeah.
And so both our candidates are talking about a platform of who do we send on calls, emergency calls, right? Sending a mental health expert or a social worker. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I actually think that there are some things that a social worker is more equipped to do, and there are some things that police officers are more equipped to do, and that actually, they should pretty much, it's a good idea to stay in your own lane. And where you can really be more helpful as a social worker, if somebody's having a mental health crisis, you don't need necessarily to have nor does a police officer, I think, want to be having to deal with those kinds of things. We're in a good place to really think about that a little differently now, I think.
So what do we do? These things have intersected and have resulted in what now looks like multiple deaths by police and multiple situations where people with mental health crises have found that they needed services but were misunderstood because people didn't know where to call. What happens when those 2 lanes intersect?
Yeah, I wish I had I'd be running for mayor tonight.
Well, there you go. That's what we're asking them to do.
Yeah. We talked about this tsunami effect, though, that COVID-19 is going to have on mental health and a crisis that's going to happen. So are you projecting that you might have to invest more dollars in agencies, or what do you see with this?
Well, there are going to be some dollars coming down the pike from the federal government, with the new, what are they calling it? The what's it called?
Like a federal infusion of reparations.
I thought I had it written down here somewhere, but I don't. But yeah, there's going to be some funding coming through. I don't know that it'll come to us necessarily.
Okay,
but
sure.
I really think that what we really have to do, and one of the things I was talking about with one of my colleagues today is what can we hope for from a mayor? Because since this is the election night, it just kind of makes sense that we have so many people that are suffering from mental illness, or let's just say, just because you're suffering during the pandemic doesn't mean you have a mental illness. That's the other thing. It's a very natural thing to have some emotional reactions during a pandemic when you're stuck at home and you can't go anywhere. So really, that's not a mental illness, but they might need or want to have a little support. And I think that one of the things that the mayor's office is perfectly suited for is to stand up and tell people there's no shame in feeling bad, like you said earlier about feeling bad is okay to feel bad, but also just the idea that we care about mental health. We're going to stand up for the issues around mental health, and the mayor be the bully pulpit for those kinds of issues. So that takes away the stigma. Even if you do have a serious mental illness, there should be no stigma in getting. You don't feel badly going to the doctor if you have a cold or if you had the flu or if you even have cancer or something very serious. It should be the same for mental health because it's just a natural thing that happens for people sometimes.
In addition to stigma, access tends to be a concern and an issue for our community. So even if they wanted services, how can you, one, address people or be able to help people who may not have a mental health condition may be temporary through COVID, but also who have mental health issues and things that may have resulted over years of trauma. How do we get the resources to them and be able to provide the services even beyond the stigma?
Yeah, well, I think that's a really, really good question, because I think that in some ways the pandemic has been really tough. In other ways, the pandemic has given us different opportunities at being able to see people, like, say, outside of the normal business hours. I think one of the issues we've had with at occasion was people their hours are office hours 9 to 5. Well, how many people are working and they need to see someone after 5?
How about that?
And so the pandemic has opened up doors for telehealth and some things of that nature. So I think telehealth has been really a great opportunity. I also think that one of the issues that we found in our needs assessment that we did just about a year and a half ago is that there's like a lot of services, but maybe some of them there may be too many of one kind and too few of something else. And that's another thing we were talking about, that the mayor could take a leadership around saying, if we can get sort of the right arrangement of our services, fund the right things with for the right sizing of our community, I think that would be a wonderful message to send out there. And
well, either way, it sounds like our candidates have that on their have that top of mind for their list of things to do. Isn't that great?
Thank you for being here with us tonight and sharing what the Mental Health Board does and a little bit more about the outreach it has. Thank you, Jema, very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, there's a lot going on here tonight with the mayoral race. A lot. We've already checked in with Andy, and we've had some interviews there. Tim Lampley actually is over at Kara Spencer's watch party, and so hopefully we'll be checking in with him shortly.
Oh, I'm sure. They're probably on edge right now.
It is.
But we're going to get into all that shortly.
Oh, actually, you know what we're going to do before we do check in with them and stuff? We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be right back, so don't go anywhere.
And that has worked with Urban League, but we wanted to talk about it because we didn't get to have them here tonight. So we wanted to talk about the services and how they have met the needs of people in tough times and have offered many resources and programs, including food giveaways.
They have the Save Our Sons program, and through our Save Our Sons program, they've done they've done like 50 employment fairs. This is just during the pandemic. They've helped almost 100,000 people just during the pandemic. There was over 13,000 applications for utility assistance that they have reviewed and things. And it's not just pandemic level services that the Urban League's been providing. They do wraparound services all the time.
Absolutely, and you mentioned Save Our Sons, which is a workforce program for young men ages 17 all the way up to 65 to equip them with skills to learn how to get a job, keep a job, get promoted, and remain marketable. So something that can help them create an entirely different outcome.
I loved that, because one of the things I read was it talked about the soft skills, right? Okay, I can get a job, but really, like, what are the soft skills in terms of being promotable and like you said, and getting, moving up in that. And then the other thing that they do outside of the pandemic is they do a lot with financial advising or trying to help find financing for people to get housing that's safe and affordable.
Absolutely.
You know, and we know that housing hasn't always been fair and equitable.
Absolutely.
For everyone. And so I think the Urban League has really, it's one of those things when we say, how do we fix it? How do we fix it? The Urban League really walks the walk and is doing what needs to be done.
And they are very innovative because, like we mentioned again, Save Our Sons was birthed out of the need and the aftermath of the Ferguson uprising and Michael Brown's death.
Right.
So depending on the need, they will find the solution that community voices where we have the need. They've erected new buildings, initiated new programs, and even in the way that they do, the food giveaways now is innovative. and incorporating community as well as other partners in order to deliver on that.
Really well said, very well said. And so we love the Urban League. We love what they're doing, definitely doing a great job. But let's check in with Tim Lampley, who's over at Kara Spencer's watch party. Tim?
Live back here at the Mahler Ballroom parking lot. My mask keeps coming off. I'm sorry. But at the Mahler Ballroom parking lot here in the Central West End. And just want to remind people that this election really isn't about the candidates. It's about you. It's about the people. It's about your voice and your vision for the city of St. Louis. And tonight you have a chance to voice your opinion, express that in no uncertain terms. And as somebody from the St. Louis American newspaper stated, that voting is the power to influence change. And one of the people who understand that is the person I'm standing with now, is Walter Bonner. He is one of the supporters and volunteers for Kara Spencer's campaign. And Walter, thank you for joining us right now.
Thank you for having me here, and I appreciate it.
Tell me why you support Kara Spencer.
Well, I've got a background in engineering, and I looked at all the facts and looked at all the information. And I live in the north side of St. Louis, and I want to know what's best for St. Louis as a whole city. And when I did my study and analysis, Kara Spencer, to me, was the right candidate for the city at this time. I think she'll be inclusive, bring the city together. My major interests are security and safety in our city and education. And I believe she's going to be the one to come to the table, bring St. Louis together, and do what's good for the city as a whole. And I like her energy, too. She has great energy.
You know, I was going to mention that you said the energy thing, because I mentioned that at the top of the piece, and you're one of the first people that I heard also say the same thing. Is that what would really resonate with voters tonight? Is that really the thing that will resonate with them, that energy from somebody who's as young as she is, as a mayoral candidate?
If people could see and feel what I felt and the energy from her, they will know immediately she is what this city needs. She's going to bring to the table a person who's worked from the bottom in the wards, in the communities, and she's proven herself there, and I like that. She's worked with the people, and I think I would like to see her work with the entire city, and we need that energy. We need her intelligence as well. She comes to the table with not talking points, but she comes to the table with a plan, and I needed a plan to make our city as great as it should be, and it will be under her leadership.
Walter, thank you for joining us so much. And, you know, I'm starting to see more people trickle in tonight, and got a little music going on, and people are mingling about. Not a whole lot going on. I suppose we'll see a lot more excitement as to flow in here. But for now, that's the news here. Kara Spencer's watch party here in the Central West End. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you so much, Tim. Oh my goodness. You can tell people are getting pretty excited about things, and it's always nice to hear what supporters from both camps what are thinking about and what they want to see happen. You know?
Absolutely, and surely in all that excitement, I started to notice how the rooms are filling up, the spaces, well, of course, with
it's
social
outdoors,
distancing.
I know.
You got it's outdoors, you got a lot of room.
We've got good weather,
Make
right?
room for these conversations. But we're gonna also see what's going on with Andy over at Kara Spencer's party.
Tashara Jones. Andy's with Tashara. We're going to go check in with
Kara.
That's all right. That's all right.
We're going to Tashara Jones' camp with Andy.
Well, I'm here with Matt Rauschenbach, political director for the Tashara camp. How are you guys feeling so far? The results have started coming in.
They have. We're feeling confident. You know, we did everything that we could do to win this race and deliver the future and the path forward that St. Louis needs and that they deserve.
Now, I want to ask you a little bit about spending. I've noticed a lot of Facebook ads. Has that been your primary source of trying to get voters?
No, it's not been. Our primary goal was to talk to voters where they were. This was a global pandemic and people were at home. We made over 200,000 contact attempts, and we were looking to learn about the issues that people were concerned about. And so we went to their door. The Facebook ads were a supplemental way to reach voters on
Which one is our mic?
social media. So,
can you tell me about how you guys you were very focused during the primaries, almost ready to come at this fight even then. Did you change any tactics, or was there anything you guys did different leading up to tonight?
No, I think if you've been following this campaign since day one, you know we've been focused on the issues. We've been focused on a message of change, and St. Louis is ready. right? We see an LGBT plus caucus on the board. And I don't think 3 years ago, 4 years ago, people ever could have imagined. The treasurer's the only candidate in this race who has said her pronouns almost every single time she has been on stage, and representation matters, and having a mayor who reflects the values of St. Louis matters.
Well, thank you so much, man. I know you got to run. You have some important duties to get to. So thank you so much for your time. We'll be keeping you posted here on what's happening with the campaign. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much, Andy. Very well done. Very young person there,
Right.
you know?
That's what we want to see, though. This helps to broaden the voice and the spectrum of contribution to the narrative.
I'm so glad you said that. And speaking, I'm just going to go off a little bit here because we're talking about this being a historic election, and that no matter what happens, history is going to take place. But I had a really proud moment today. Not only did I get to vote, but my oldest son voted for the very first time today.
Together.
And it's just like, actually, no. You would think I would have taken him to the poll. No, I just said, son, you're going to have to figure out when in your day you can go vote. Yeah. And he did. And he Snapchatted me, he said, I voted. And you know, I screenshotted that.
Of course you did.
And I'm keeping it. And I mean, I just had goosebumps. I was like, this is
right. Why did it mean so much to you?
Thank you for asking me. It is, I realize there's a long history of privilege and having access, but I think that this is a really cool civic duty and just a great way to show participation in our community. And I was glad that I actually said, I think you should vote this way or this way. He says, wait, I'm gonna go look up stuff on the internet first. And you're not gonna tell me how to vote. So that he took his own mind and that he took his own time to go do it, and that he wanted to, not mom telling him to.
And it sounds like he has such a great sense of pride because he did.
It'll be interesting when I get home to talk about all the results with him, though, and see how he
I
actually
wonder if
feels
you all
about
are on
it.
the same side or not, but there's going to be some victory or trash talking going on, I think, at your house.
I think so, too. We always kind of talk about things that
But all
are
in good
around
fun.
that.
Did you talk about how this pie of our Board of Aldermen will be split right now?
No, I'm interested to have those conversations. And what's interesting is, so what happened is there was Prop D that took place, and so we're going to talk a little bit more about what happened with that when we come back. But we'll go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll have some results, and we'll talk a little bit more about Prop D and what we're talking about in terms of splitting those wards in half and our representation at the Board of Aldermen. So stick around. Don't go anywhere.
And welcome back to our live coverage of the general election 2021. It's happening. We have arrived. We are here.
I'm anxious to see some results, but we don't have them yet, but we will shortly, I'm hearing. And we before the break, we talked about pride in voting and things like that, and we talked about the aldermen being reduced. So what happened is there was a vote, not Prop D, but there was a vote, and it was passed where voters said, no, we're actually going to reduce. Right now we have 28 wards in the city of St. Louis, and by 2022-ish, I'm understanding, we would reduce that to 14.
Can you imagine? How is that decided? So we're left to figure out, where do you redraw the lines to have fewer wards to represent? What could be the implications of that?
I'm wondering about that too, and I'm thinking about like what's happening with all the older people who are on the ballot tonight, and what will happen with that. You know, it's been interesting too. I know we see this every year also, though. We see people on the Board of Aldermen taking and supporting different candidates for mayor, right?
Yes.
So then I kind of wonder what it's like, well, when you support a candidate and maybe the candidate you didn't support actually wins, or they come back. What's the working relationship like right on that floor?
Well, I think they kind of, you know, as if you and I somehow ended up at different stations, would we stop working together toward community good?
No.
Absolutely not. I'm sure it continues, but there's probably
agree.
but I'm sure, you know, you still want to get things done. Those have to be considerations too. And then if you're redrawing districts, you're talking about resources, money, support, you're talking about what the community can do and how they can engage. So there's going to be a great deal of things to hash through in order to come to a final solution.
I think that my concern, and I think like you said it in a much nicer way, is that that there's not representation, right? So if there's 14 wards, then is my little tiny neighborhood on the far north side and going to be represented at the table when money's being allocated, right? Or is it going to be based on those neighborhoods that have a higher population and things like that? So,
and that's been the constant cry of community: is will it be fair? Will it be equitable? And will my voice be heard? And it has been an issue, and now we're seeing more vocal resistance to not having an opportunity or a seat at the table. So that's where we come down to the conversation about race.
I'm going to change gears a little bit here, and we talk about having a seat at the table. I shared a little bit more about the civic duty and sharing your voice and voting, right? And so MSD has some things on the ballot at this time where they're asking us to say yay or nay on a few things. And one of those things is, a bond issue, right? To help pay for millions of dollars of reparations that need to be made. And
reparations to
like what our
their
current system,
infrastructure.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Now here's
what we talking about.
But that's but when you talk about some cultural differences,
right? That's a great point.
I hear reparations. I'm like, oh, they're going to
Healing
do something
equity.
to but we're talking about the infrastructure of the metropolitan sewer district.
Yeah.
So there is a distinction, but things do need to be prepared. Now, what do they propose?
Yeah, so MSD is saying that they're actually going to need, so the idea here is you can either vote and you would Prop Y. They want to borrow $500 million to improve their wastewater service. So this is as a result of a 2012 settlement over the Clean Water Act. So this is billions of dollars worth of infrastructure upgrades. They have to have it all done by 2039. So now the burden is going to be, so you either take out and you vote yes on this Prop Y, and there's this bond issue, and the payment is over time and probably at a little lesser rate. But if it doesn't pass and people say no, it's going to be just passed on, and we're going to be paying a higher rate anyway in a shorter term.
And here's what I'd like to see is the consideration of what it would cost to what happens if you don't do something about it. Those conversations get separated, but they really are closely linked. This is a response to, oh, we have a wastewater issue. However, now we're saying, hey, we want to have a tax to cover it. Do people understand that this is kind of what we asked for, or we need to ask for something else? But those are all great things that are part of what this decision is about
in addition to
tonight.
just a couple other things with their charter. And so, we are going to continue this conversation and some more conversations and have a few more guests on. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Well, a lot has happened due to the pandemic, and COVID-19 has impacted education as well. And both Jade and I have kids in school.
Tons.
She has tons. I have too.
Yeah. But you did mention that your son, your oldest one, had voted. So what's the younger son?
Yeah.
Is in what grade?
Yeah, I've got a freshman and I've got a senior.
Oh, yeah.
And so what I will say is, and I also work in education. And
Okay.
so what I've seen is that I've seen with my own two sons, they've been resilient through all of this and be able to do some online learning. I know that's not the case for a lot of other students. What I'm seeing in the public high school where I work is a lot of D's and F's and a lot of students who struggled. And what I'm hearing from my colleagues is, what are we going to do about this learning gap?
Yeah.
Right? But the learning gap is all over the world. It's not just here.
Absolutely. And it's also very individual. So we joke about how many children I have. No child out of the 4 is doing the same thing or approaching this the same way. My children, some are home, some 1 or 2 are home. We've got a couple in a hub, and there's another student in school, and they all had to find what worked for them. But for us, it was about making it individual and figuring out what would work for each child. And even in that sense, they're still not quite where they would want to be, they say.
And then beyond just looking at COVID, we're talking about St. Louis public school system. And so there's a lot of changes going on with that, right, Jade?
Yes, it is. So due to low enrollment, the St. Louis Public School District will close 7 schools this fall: Clay, Dunbar, Farragut, and Ford Elementary, Fanning Middle School, Cleveland High School, and Northwest Academy High School. Unfortunately, the St. Louis public school closures are not a new trend. According to a January 2021 article in Dissent magazine, since 1983, over 40 city schools have closed due to low enrollment. And between 1967 and today, enrollment has gone from over 115,000 students to under 20,000.
That's a big drop. And on top of that, the same article states that city students in grades 3 through 8 score over 2 grade levels below the country average on standardized accountability tests, specifically in math and English.
Yeah, so joining us for that conversation now from the American Federation of Teachers of St. Louis, Local 420, is spokesperson Byron Clemens. Thank you for being with us tonight, Byron.
Good evening, exciting evening. It's been an exciting election, and it's been exciting for us to be part of this St. Louis Public Schools picture. As you know about the school closures, the Board of Aldermen voted to be opposed to the school closures, and we took that as an opportunity to reach out to the mayoral candidates, and they agreed with us. No new schools, which would apply to charter schools as well,
Right.
to other public schools. That was a great agreement by both candidates.
Okay.
All of the candidates except for Andrew Jones. But,
Oh, my. It sounds like you were very invested in this.
Absolutely. And looking at
issue.
the TIF and tax abatement, not giving everything away. And that's important for all of us. We are in favor of some incentives for developers, but it should never be 100%. And so the story of the St. Louis Public Schools, we regained accreditation. Everybody knows that. And out of the top 10 schools in the state, over and over and over again, St. Louis Public Schools are at the top. Metro, McKinley, Kennard, they're all there. They rank in the top. So it's
does
still
it
a
not
big
make
school
sense
district.
to-
It's still a big school district.
Yeah.
And of course, like any curve, one end were exceptional and some were struggling. But it's not going to help to defund public education. We shouldn't be doing that. And we shouldn't do it in favor of privatization. That's what the school board race was about. There were some candidates who were, I'd say, stealth funded. And there's 3 candidates who are parents who ran, and you know which ones we backed. But that's not important. We're going to see the results like everybody else. But it's an exciting election. It's not our first rodeo. But we're glad the mayoral candidates agreed with us. We're going to look at whoever's in that seat is going to look at TIFs and tax abatements. So don't give away everything. We'll find some way for people to pay their fair share. I think that's important. We want to fully fund schools.
Well, when we talk about, curing violence and some of the things
Yes.
that are going on, we talk about the sense of community, right? And so then I think the things I've always heard is the community around a school, and that helps revitalize the community.
I like even how your hand motions
Oh,
are
okay.
describing it. Our kids are not bubbles outside of the community. Our families are not outside of the community. We have to look at this approach holistically. If it's about the justice system or education, you just don't shuffle it off and say, oh, the failing school. No, that's not going to work. We're all in this together.
Yeah, we are. One of the other concerns is that we also can't just throw money at the problem. So how can we make our public schools better and serve our students better?
It's not going to be by cutting budgets and closing schools. That just isn't going to do it. So we know what makes a successful school.
Give me a couple examples.
Extracurricular activities.
Okay.
You should have more art, more drama, more chess clubs, more football and soccer and everything else. That's what private schools do to make them incentivize and keeping those families in the schools, keeping them open, even having social workers from the state in the school, full service community schools. Those are part of the answers.
Yeah, it sounds like that makes it a richer experience for the student to have a more productive learning environment.
And this pandemic, and you mentioned it about your own families, we slowly shut the schools down. We followed the CDC guidelines. We gradually opened them up. We were sort of ahead of the curve for most places and did it very well. We started in the summer for special needs students. We opened 14 centers then 1 grade at a time till we got up to high school in January. Still, some parents are keeping their kids in a virtual mode, but I think that's going to change relatively soon.
Talk to me about the sentiment of teachers. I mean, I know that we ask them to do more and more and more every year. You know, what are we doing to attract and retain really good teachers in St. Louis Public Schools? And also, there's a whole nother question here, like how are they faring during this?
It's been hard, but we've been able to reach with the district a really big agreement for us. We got a $1,900 stipend and a 4% raise and another 3% raise coming up, which helps after suffering for a few years.
Right.
I think they've decided we are of more value than they might have seen before the pandemic started.
Can you imagine?
Well, look how creative you had to become. So, you know, we applaud our teachers and certainly appreciate you doing all that you can to continue to serve our children.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here and sharing all the insights with us, especially as we move forward.
Well, we're excited to see these
be.
school board results as well. So
That's right. 3 candidates, right, will come out of tonight.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And rest in peace, Bill Haas, the perennial candidate for so many things. But
right.
You know, I respected Bill, and he was a lovely human being. And he ran for everything.
He sure did. It was a familiar name on there. Thank you again, Mr. Cummins. We appreciate it. Boy, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking it's got to be time soon to check in on some results.
Or at least check in and see how things are going, or
with Tim or Andy.
There's so many things we could possibly talk about, and we just don't even know where to begin.
You know, it's been interesting. It's been an interesting journey, I think, you know, in terms of one of the other things that we've been talking about. We talked about education and COVID-19, but think about, we haven't really talked a little bit about the businesses.
Well, you know what? That's a great intersection, because what I wanted to ask earlier applies to business. COVID has given us an opportunity to look at different models of how we conduct our day-to-day business and learning experiences. There are many people that are they're not going back to work. They've redesigned the way they do business. We've redesigned the way that our classrooms function, and we certainly see, I mean, even our environment.
We talked about that be changing.
Including, but we also see how that it enriches our environment, has gotten a rest. So with all of these things that were impacted by COVID, it did give us a chance to adjust the lens a little bit, I think.
I think that's what's really exciting too. I keep thinking when we talk about, and we've talked about racial inequity, and then we've also talked about curbing violence and crime and violent crime, right? And so we're talking about, we can't just keep doing things the same way we've always done them when it comes to those things either, right? So having a fresh lens and a fresh face and a new approach to cure violence or you know, provide people with sustainable jobs and upward mobility, housing. I mean, St. Louis, I'm a transplant here, you know, and I've learned a lot over the years, as are you.
Right.
But I don't think that we are isolated when it came to redlining and restricted covenants and things that happened. And so what I hope is more people will learn, as I have learned, that you don't have an opportunity to create wealth for you and your family for generations if you can't buy a house.
Well, you're preaching to the choir there. But my thought is, all of the things that we've named are now becoming a part of what seems to be a more holistic approach of how we care for our citizens, how we serve our citizens, how we understand that we are interconnected, and that masks, social distancing, and all of those things are examples of how what one person can do affects everyone else around them. So there isn't that silo that maybe could have these issues in just different spaces, as I'm showing them on this table.
I love that you said that. No, and then I just kind of felt akin to you as well, in the sense that we are anyway. But I think too, even with these 2 mayoral candidates, I don't know about you, but I feel equally hopeful. And equally excited about where we're heading. Not like, you know, so I think that's one of And speaking of that,
we get a little peek at where we're heading.
We have some unofficial but possibly very updated results for mayor at this point right now. Tashara Jones is at 51.68% of the vote. Kara is trailing at almost 47.77.
Wow. With several thousand, tens of thousands of votes coming in for each candidate. So there is some activity. I'd like to know what those percentages are of how important and how engaged people were in this election. We're going to check in with Andy now to see
how things are going at Tashara's camp. Yeah.
Well, guys, the atmosphere here got electric real quick. We got some really good news that, well, the race has been decided and Tashara Jones won, so people are celebrating. They're dancing. Everybody got out of their cars. Someone even broke out a bottle of champagne. There's champagne being distributed. People are partying and dancing in the background behind our cameras. It really is a celebration. So a historic moment as she's become the next mayor here of St. Louis, the very first African-American female mayor of St. Louis. She is going to speak in about 5 minutes. We'll be actually updating you with more information as she'll be back here in about 5 minutes. So back to you in the studio. It's a party here. We're having a good time.
So exciting. So it's looking like officially, that it's looking pretty much like Tashara Jones would be the 47th mayor of city of St. Louis. Boy, oh boy.
Congratulations to both of you for a well-fought, well-driven, and well-consuming campaign that really got people involved and ignited about the causes and believing that something could be done about it.
Yes, and you know what we haven't had a chance to do is check in to find out where we are with other things on the campaign. Hopefully we'll have a little chance to do that as well before we actually sign off for the evening. We've had a great time. We've been able to talk about a lot of different, you and I have just been able to banter about a lot of different social issues as well as the things that are on the ballot themselves.
Yeah.
So just to recap, the things that are on the ballot tonight, we have the mayoral race. We've got Tashara Jones that is unofficially being called the winner tonight for the mayoral race. We've got Prop E, which is the 1% earnings tax.
We've got the St. Louis Public School Board elections. We've got Comptroller Darlene Green could probably claim victory unless something miraculous stopped it.
That's right.
And we don't want that.
No, we want Darlene.
That's right. She's done and has done a tremendous job.
And then, of course, there was the Prop Y with MSD, as well as a couple of their charter amendments that they wanted to put that were also on the ballot for us to vote for. So a lot of things out there to still hear about and hear from, but we've been really excited to kind of seal the deal, so to speak, with this mayoral
race. No matter what, we've got progression. We've got progression toward an improved and more well-functioning St. Louis.
I think probably our colleagues on the other stations are saying that as well, but they're also pointing out, and I would be remiss if I didn't, that Tashara would be the first African-American woman to be mayor of St. Louis. This is the first African-American candidate we've had in the office since the late 90s. So, you know, I think it's important to point that out, and it is exciting. And what's great is we've got, no matter what, we've got a great candidate who's going to help be on the national stage for St. Louis.
Absolutely, and very engaged and involved that way. And she has support and colleagues. She has partners. She has many people rallying to make sure that success is had.
I want to talk a little bit more about Tashara Jones, and you know her, so that's where we're going to talk about that. And so one thing I find really wonderful is that she is she's unapologetically Black and a graduate of an HBCU.
Yes, she is, and she is a member of a historically Black sorority as well, Delta Sigma Theta. So we're going to check in with Tim now.
With Kara's camp. Let's hear what Kara's camp is having to say now. Tim?
Yeah. So as you can hear tonight, 20th Ward Alderwoman Kara Spencer is conceding the race. There were really no surprises here tonight. Many voters expected Treasurer Tashara Jones to pull off the win, and she did. Jones has made history as the first African-American mayor for the city of St. Louis. And she will be sworn in on April 20th and will have to hit the ground running because major staffing and budget decisions will be waiting, as well as those related to hundreds of millions of dollars in pandemic aid for the city expected to arrive this spring. Again, the new mayor-elect is Tashara Jones, treasurer, and you may ask what will happen with her position. Well, according to state law, Jones will have to appoint a successor as treasurer for the city of St. Louis. But for now, Kara Spencer continues to give a concession speech, thanking her supporters and volunteers. And that's where we'll leave this.
I will continue to work to not divide, but to unify our city. Unify our region, city and county. To rebuild trust.
There was a semi-dark stage there
It
as
was.
Kara was coming on to thank her supporters.
There's nothing to lament over other than if it's about the loss, but she really put forward a great effort. She energized our community, and she probably will continue to do so at a even greater level. So we are looking at an update now. Tashara Jones at 51.68%. and Kara Spencer at 47.77%, a 3% or so lead.
It's enough to call it, and it's enough for Kara to concede.
That's enough for her to concede, and that's what we just heard about.
We are excited. And Kara,
we should be hearing from Tashara's party soon as well.
Yes, yes. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We will be going to Tashara's camp to hear directly from our new mayor of the city of St. Louis.
Our first. For our new mayor of St. Louis City.
Congratulations, Tashara Jones.
Congratulations.
To making this possible. Rosetta Okeson is the CEO and principal at Mo Political Consulting and campaign strategist and manager for this campaign. As Tashara likes to frequently say, Rosetta will squeeze a nickel until it bleeds and stretch $1 as far as it can go. Rosetta and Tashara have been working together for nearly 5 years. Through hours of call time, planning meetings, press conferences, rallies, and more, Tashara and Rosetta have led this campaign and brought hope to the city of St. Louis. To introduce Tashara O. Jones's son, Rosetta Okeson.
Hey y'all, how we doing? As Matt just said, I am Rosetta Okeson. I am the Chief Strategist and Campaign Manager for Tashara O. Jones for Mayor. And I am the CEO and founder of Myers Okeson Political Consulting, and I use the she, her pronouns. 4 years ago, I was honored to stand with Tashara in her first run for mayor of the city of St. Louis. In that race, we were told that Tashara would not break 15% of the vote. In that race, we exceeded all expectations, coming within 888 votes of electing our city's first Black woman mayor. Let's talk about 888 real quick. For 4 years, I have carried that number around with me as a reminder of how close. Like literally, it's on my arm right here. This is for this race.
As soon as she gets done, I'm gonna try
and
to
how
switch
much
batteries.
we came,
As soon
and
as
how
she gets
close
done.
we came to changing and growing this city. A reminder of the incredible coalition of energetic and passionate people across our city who said yes to a new way forward for St. Louis.
I'm gonna try to change batteries as soon as she get done. You hear me, Tony?
A reminder of an establishment which
Tony?
told us that a movement crying out from reform and recognition could use a dose of humility. A reminder that the work still needs to be done. And for 4 years, we have done the work. As treasurer, Tashara has built relationships across the city, state, and nation. She has worked to raise up our families and our children and fought to ensure that our people were protected and well informed during this pandemic. She has shown up for workers, stood up to special interests, and spoke on behalf of the progressive causes from closing the workhouse. I said, from closing the workhouse to the fight for a $15 minimum wage. And all of that work has brought us here to this moment. 4 years, hundreds of thousands of doors, and 3 elections later. I am proud to have stood by Tashara every step of the way, and I'm so excited for the St. Louis that we are all going to build together with Tashara O. Jones as our first Black woman mayor. To everyone that said it wasn't possible, who told us not to reach higher, to believe in better, to fight for a future that is equitable, inclusive, and led by strong, unapologetically Black women. I have only this to say. F your glass ceiling.
Well, we're all excited. Tashara hasn't gotten there yet, but we're going to come back to her in just a little bit.
She has arrived.
That's right.
She may not be ready yet to share about how the victory has landed with her. However, she has been on this journey for a very long time.
It's well said. That's a great, very well said. And when we talk about bringing communities together, and I think that's really what's going to happen here. We've got our friend and colleague, Daniela Velasquez, is here with us. Daniela not only works for STL TV, but she's affiliated with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and you've been an ongoing advocate and you know, doing your civic duty.
Absolutely. Yep. And when I say Tashara's been at it, like, didn't you start at like 4? But
yeah.
Daniela, what does this victory represent or mean for you personally and for the community you serve?
Well, I think it's great to see a woman of color in office, in power, making decisions and bringing others to the table. I know just as a member of the St. Louis community, she's been working to bring...
Danielle, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but you know how this works with live television. This is so sweet. We've got Tashara's son introducing her as she gets ready to take the stage and give her acceptance speech.
My name is Aiden Jeffries, but everybody calls me AJ. Guess what? Guess what? Don't tell anybody, but we won. I'd like to mention a couple people that have been with me and helped me while my mom has been running for mayor. First and foremost, my papa, Vervis Jones. He let me take over his basement for the last couple of months, and he's fully vaccinated, and so I can go back to in-person school. A couple of these other people are some of my best friends that have also been hanging out with me and helped me through this time. Santana Bolden, Taj Elliott, Matthew Hurst, Cole Rossini, Taylor Flacken, Emmy Takau, Emma Noonan, and many more. To be honest, this is very surreal because I now have the title of the first son. I am proud of my mom. She's been in politics ever since I was born. I'm proud that she made it this far in her career as the city of treasurer now for the mayor of the city of St. Louis. I know I might be a pain in the butt sometimes, but honestly, I don't think that she'd be here without me today. I know my mom thinks of me with every decision that she makes, and she wants me to make the city better someday. Now introducing the mayor of the city of St. Louis, my mom, Tashara Jones.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Tashara Jones. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm the daughter of Laura and Vervis. Yes, you are. I'm the granddaughter of Angeline and Charlie and Eddie and Daisy. Sister to Chelsea and Ida. Mother of Aiden. Daughter of Walnut Park, Hamilton Heights, and Wells Goodfellow neighborhoods. And because of you, I'm the mayor-elect of the city of St. Louis. I want to start by saying thank you. Thank you to my family, to my daddy, to my daddy, to my son, my adorable son, Ada, to my two little sisters, who are becoming two incredible women. Thank you to my campaign team at Mo Political. And most of all, thank you to everyone who has supported this campaign. Thank you to my staff in the Treasurer's office. Yeah. Where are you? The baddest team in local government. And the group of the hardest working individuals in St. Louis. I love you, I love you, I love you. But I won't be too far. I'm just down the hall and around the corner. Maya Angelou wrote, "You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I rise." But let's talk about this race. The race for mayor. And to do so, we must talk about race. Some will chalk the negativity that's been spewed over the past few weeks from the opposition to just politics, and that it should be my responsibility to just ignore it and move on for the sake of unity and civility.
Come on. Come through, Madam Mayor.
My professional mantra has always been, I ain't got to like you to work with you. I don't even have to love you to work with you, but we have to get things done. But I will not stay silent about the need to eradicate dog whistle racism and the underlying bigotry from the discourse of our politics. I will not stay silent when I spot racism. I will not stay silent when I spot homophobia or transphobia. I will not stay silent when I spot xenophobia. I will not stay silent when I spot religious intolerance. And I will not stay silent when I spot any injustice. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Martin Luther King, who was assassinated 53 years ago on Easter Sunday, the day of the resurrection, he's the one who said injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And this will be central to my style of governance. When I announced that I was running for mayor, and throughout the entirety of this campaign, I have said, you should be able to succeed here regardless of your skin color, regardless of who you love, regardless of your documentation status, regardless of what language you speak, regardless of how you worship, regardless of what neighborhood you live in, regardless of your health insurance status, regardless of your school district, regardless of your zip code, regardless of any identity you hold. Even if you voted for me, or if you didn't vote for me, I want to build a city where each and every one of you feels welcome. And tonight, we achieved that in an historic moment for our city. Not only will I be the first Black woman to be mayor of the city of St. Louis, but this campaign can unequivocally say that we've begun breaking down the historic racial barriers and the racial divides that exist and have existed for generations in our city. Our movement, yes, our movement is one that spans from Natural Bridge to Holly Hills, from the intersection of Forest Park and Kings Highway to Loughborough and South Broadway. Even as we have begun to break down these dividing walls, we've been required to evaluate the substantial amount of work that's left to be done. From rebuilding and redeveloping our neighbors with communities, not to them, addressing the inequities of the delivery in our city services, and reforming our broken city government to be transparent, accessible, and open to you, the taxpayers, and the residents of the city of St. Louis. Throughout this campaign, my team and I have laid out a bold agenda to move our city forward and to prepare us for the realities we're facing in the 21st century, to restore peace, security, and prosperity to every neighborhood in our city. Maya Angelou also most famously said, "My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some compassion, some passion, some humor, and some style." As a city, we've been surviving. We've suffered disinvestment, decades of violence, broken promises from our city's leaders who have bowed to the wills of special interests and insider dealings. It's time for St. Louis to thrive. It's time for St. Louis to thrive. It's time to bring a breath of fresh air to our neighborhoods. I will lead with compassion, intention, a bit of humor, and yes, I hope you get to see a bit of my style. But it's not lost on me that this evening is possible because of the women who've come before me. From former State Rep Betty Thompson, who was arrested in D.C. for protesting apartheid in South Africa, to Miss Ollie Stewart, founder and executive director of the Southside Wellness Center and Senior Citizen Center, to the late, great Pearlie Evans, who called me to her bedside just before she died. And she told anybody who would listen, I want Tashara to be my mayor. Mama Pearlie, you got your wish. And last but not least, Gwen Giles, one of the best political minds our city has ever seen. I'm here this evening to accept the challenge that lies before us to move our city and our region forward because of them. And here is where I'll pause and mention the most important woman in my life.
It's all right. Say it. Say her name.
My mama.
Yeah.
My mother, Laura, died of cancer at a pivotal time in my own development. When I was knocked down, but refused to be knocked out. Inspired by her grit, her tenacity, and the strength that she demonstrated even in her poor health, I stepped back and pinpointed and rooted my system of support and rebuilt my life step by step. Thank you, Mama. As mayor, I look forward to doing the same thing. We have over $500 million in federal funds on its way to our city. And I look forward to getting your input, the input of people who live and work and raise their families in our city on how to spend these funds. Because again, they're your tax dollars. That's why I'm proud to announce that we will soon be launching a transition website where everyone will have the ability and opportunity to make their voices heard. Building upon the opportunity you all had to submit your ideas on my platform page and a plan for incoming funds during the campaign, I pledge to you that my administration will usher in a new era of collaboration and cooperation between our partners directly to the west and the east, across the state and around the country. And we will become unafraid of asking for help and seeking out ideas that have worked elsewhere to grow our city, to make development equitable, to improve the processes of our city's government. On this website, you'll be able to find job openings and descriptions and ways to begin engaging with my administration. And as we move forward, transformational change will not be immediate. It will require a little patience, a little hard work, determination, and the understanding that decades of problems will not be solved within days of solutions. However, I can promise you this. And I'm gonna stop crying. I can promise you this. I will get up every day, day in, day out, and I will work for you. So, to the single mamas out there who were struggling to make ends meet, to the LGBT plus youth who are wondering if City Hall has you in mind, and for those of you who feel as if government has forgotten you and flat out left you behind, I will get up every day and work for you. I believe St. Louis's brightest days are ahead of us and not behind us. I believe that hope and optimism reside in every nook and cranny and neighborhood of our city. I will be the next mayor of the city of St. Louis because of you. Because of your trust in me and in your trust for a brighter tomorrow. So as Mary J. Blige, the great prophetess, once said, believe in yourself when nobody else does. And I believe in St. Louis. Do you believe in St. Louis? Yeah! I believe in our future. Do you believe in our future? Yeah! God bless each and every one of you. God bless each and every one of your beautiful families. And may God bless the city of St. Louis. Thank you.
I get a little misty at the magnitude of this moment. Can you imagine what that's like for Aiden, her son?
Oh my gosh. And he's a teenager, right?
He is a teenager. He's my son's age. And the fact they played together, they're probably going to talk about this. Your mom's the mayor, you know? Pretty big deal.
Yes, on Snap.
Yeah, they're not going to be
or
talking.
whatever. Can we follow it on
Fortnite,
TikTok?
yes.
I'm kind of wondering.
They are. But it's really moving because he has been along this journey. And what that speaks to as well, and Daniela had referenced it, not only having a woman of color, a woman with the lived experience of being a working mother, a single mother, trying to make a difference, as well as trying to make a way for you and your family.
It's exciting. And I think there were barriers in the way for so many years that now we've just like busted this wide open. And I've been talking to people about why is it taking St. Louis this long? But let's just celebrate the fact that it has happened.
Right.
You were saying, Danielle.
Now that we're here. You know, we have a woman of color, and that is significant, but what else?
It's significant, and also, you know, just through the years of her work in the treasurer's office and in the campaign, I noticed that Tashara really reached out to the Hispanic, Latino community, and certainly a lot of the issues that affect all of St. Louisans, but particularly communities of color, like, you know, COVID and, you know, jobs. You know, she has been actively involving our community, which is really exciting, and I think it is the way of the future. So
Yeah, it is.
I'm glad to, can't wait to see what happens next as far as inclusivity.
What would be one of the first things you would want to have a conversation with her about?
Oh, good question.
She's good. She always brings them. She's got it.
Well, I think part of it, what's been really exciting in just the past few years with, even this year with Kamala Harris, is just being able to talk about what it's like to be a woman of color. You know, there are differences for Latinas and Black women, but there's still a lot that's in common. So just how do you navigate it? How do you navigate, you know, all of some of the criticism that she's faced? I mean, you could definitely say it's been rooted in sexism and you know, racism.
I mean,
so
had things been, we have a historic fight that brought us here. There's a reason why these are even conversations now. And there are some that are fatigued that we're having so many of them. Like, why all this cultural competency? Why all this?
Just to be clear, she didn't look at me because I say that.
Oh no, this is not. You want to talk about asset, but yeah, there is that, and that has been there. So there's a reason to keep bringing the voice forward. There's a reason why you have a board. There's a reason why you're so hopeful and that you have some work to do. What work needs to be done? You talked about issues for the Latino and Hispanic community. What are some of the key things that need to be addressed promptly?
Well, COVID, and I know that you know the city's been active in reaching out to.
How is the community being affected? Disproportionately or anything?
Disproportionately, both in number of vaccines and also in the state disproportionately. Latinos have had higher rates of COVID. So again, if people choose to get vaccinated, getting vaccinated, but also getting the messages in Spanish, particularly just access to information too, that's key. I think everybody who's in the city is concerned about public safety. One thing that I believe that she's planning on introducing or has been a supporter of are municipal IDs. And so thinking about things that are, that can keep people safe. So, for the Hispanic community in particular, folks are targeted, because they may or may not have an ID. And that actually goes for all different, folks who may be transgender, folks that may have, have a
folks
different.
who check the boxes as other.
Right, exactly.
If they let you, right? That's an option.
Or, you know,
Yeah.
other than.
Other than, yeah.
And when the point is, you know, we've got these issues of, hey, I need an ID, or I'll
Right.
have
A barrier again.
not only barrier, but I can be stopped, I can be harassed, I can be denied resources, I can be denied opportunity. But that's not universal. Now here we're having a COVID conversation about, hey, everybody wear masks, everybody watch your distance, because it matters what you do to help your community. But we're not saying everybody have health insurance, everybody have respect when they're out and their ID is valid. So the conversation that COVID is initiating, I hope, resonates and becomes the conversation we have with regard to all of us in any way that we can be hurt or traumatized or displaced or even just unheard or become invisible. So I really value that you spoke to it in those terms. What is your hope for a better St. Louis? Now that I got off of that.
No, I mean,
how'd you get me there?
But I think you're right. I mean, I think when we look at COVID and how it's really laid bare the inequities that a lot of us have been talking about before, it's how do we look at things from a public health perspective? And that's one thing I know that you all talked a lot about tonight.
We did.
And you know, the new mayor has a background in public health as well. So thinking about how do we...
Great point.
Yeah, I mean, can St. Louis actually take a look at some of its root issues of inequity and how do we thrive?
Sure. Well, no person can do it alone. So clearly she's gonna need support. Which she's gonna need, in order to make these great strides, she's gonna need a great rally of people who can help execute that in order for the change to happen. What kinds of things do you want to offer in order to see some of your needs met?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I think one, just, you know, the idea of equity at the center, and that's what I've heard a lot about during this campaign, you know, from both candidates, but in particular, Mayor Jones. So, you know, I think for the Hispanic community, I mean, one, being heard, being reached out to, seeing that, you know, a lot of what St. Louis needs is what everybody needs.
It's what everybody needs. That's kind of your public health. It's public health, but there is no everyone without the one.
Right.
So it's like individually take care of everybody. Like publicly take care of every individual, I guess I'm trying to say.
It's like a big group project.
Yeah, that's it. And you know, in the end, we're gonna be graded on how are the children doing well.
That's the question we ask daily, especially in the district where I work. How are the children? How are the children, right? In terms of, we talked about trauma affecting generations and
now the learning gap.
Absolutely.
You know, that's an African proverb that says any community, you can see how well they're doing if the children, by the condition of the children. And so they ask in their greetings, like along with hello and everything, they say, are the children well? There's a great TED Talk by one of our colleagues here in St. Louis who runs the collective STL, and they speak upon that, like who ends up bearing the weight? Children, underserved, minority, you know, with any identity other than, hey, you don't have anything to address. So those things will start to show up, and I think we'll be able to really tap into that. The concern, though, is how the tsunami effect of COVID may negatively come if we don't have some things to gird against that wave. What are you hopeful for now with the vaccines and community opening back up?
Well, definitely hanging around people, hugs, or at least maybe high elbows, more high elbows. Yeah, and I think just, you know, to your point about, you know, the future, and you mentioned lived experience, right, as something we value in policymakers, and since we're all kind of here thinking about that, what does that look like, right? I mean, does it look like, are the children well? Can we have, can we have these social gatherings because we're social creatures. Like humans are social
No
creatures.
matter how much we try to deny it, I think
Exactly.
this has come to light, for sure.
It was good not talking to you, but I miss not talking to you.
That's right.
I know who my true friends are, right?
Exactly.
And I don't need as big of a bubble, but it's interesting those conversations you have with strangers, right? And that little infusion of energy you get from that. And so we appreciated having you here, Daniela. I mean, it's been fun to have a conversation, and we've just been talking and talking in circles, and it's an exciting time, and we hope that you get some time to celebrate with friends, socially distanced, or however you choose to do that.
But knowing Daniela, I know you can't wait to roll your sleeves up and get
That's
to it.
exactly
So
right.
I would be remiss if I didn't give you a chance to say where people can find out more about the board and how they can get involved with helping make change happen for you.
Sure. I'm a member. I'm on the board of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We welcome folks who have businesses, who are part of businesses. We have had social networking things online. Hopefully when the pandemic concludes or it's safe, we'll be meeting in person. So you can catch it at stlhcc.org, I think, or Google Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you so much for bringing your perspective and being here with us.
Awesome.
Thank
Okay,
you
well,
for
let's
having
check in and find out what's going on with the aldermanic races right now in terms of an update on what's going on with that. We know that Tashara Jones is mayor, but we're checking in with Ward 1. We can see that
Sharon Tyus has 57.66% of the vote, and Yolanda Brown was trailing, and we've got 64% going to Brandon Bosley of Ward 3 and 34% to Madonia. I can't see that
perfect.
one,
In
but-
Ward 4, we've got an overwhelming majority for Dwayne Evans. Perfect. All right. And then Ward 5.
James Page wins Ward 5. And for Ward 7, we have Jack Kotar at 52%.
Perfect. Moving on to Ward 9, you've got Dan Gunther. And Ward 11, of course, Sarah ran unopposed. Sarah Wood Martin for Ward 11.
She won.
Yay!
Congratulations, Sarah. 51% of the vote for Ward 12 was Bill Stevens.
Wait a minute, close one, yeah, there. Ward 13, we've got Ann Schweitzer. We'll be sitting on the board. Ward 15, we've got Megan Elia Green.
And Jennifer Florida at 32%.
Wow.
Concedes to her. Ward 17 update, we have Tina Sweet Tea Phil at 50%, and it was a sweet, very narrow win over Michelle Sherrod at 49%. But Tina Sweet Tea is your new 17th Ward Alderman. Congratulations. And Ward 19 is Marlene Davis with a huge lead over Brother Cleo Willis Sr. Congratulations, Marlene.
Absolutely. It'll be good to see Marlene there on the Board of Alderman meetings and staying.
Wow, what a big spread there. That's interesting. I'd like to know more.
Ward 21, John Collins Muhammad will serve the award again as he's been reelected over Laura Keyes.
And in Ward 23, somehow Joseph won uncontested.
Alderman Vaccaro, yeah.
Yes.
And then Shane Cohen was reelected as well to Ward 25.
In Ward 27, Pamela Boyd at 54% of the votes, and Chris Carter at 44%. So Ward 27, congratulations, Pamela Boyd is your new alderwoman.
Well, this has been a lot of fun checking on that. Okay, and then Darlene Green, of course, ran uncontested.
I'm sure.
So, Darlene, congratulations on serving another term as the comptroller for the city of St.
Almost
Louis.
unanimously.
We would hope
98.2%,
so, right?
with
So-
47,000, nearly 48,000 votes. Way to go and do a great job, Darlene, and continue to keep serving the city of St. Louis.
Yeah, as the fiscal officer, Darlene directs all the fiscal affairs, and she oversees the $1 billion budget we've got here in the city. And so she does serve on the executive branch for the government, and so she's on the board for estimate and apportionment. And of course, she's been on the board of many different things throughout the city.
She's
and
very
a
involved.
huge award winner. I mean, just when we talk about a trailblazer, here we've got, Tashara Jones, history in the making. Mayor Jones, excuse me, and then here's Darlene Green, who's been serving us tried and true here in the city for a long, long time. Well,
And
congratulations.
here we are again, Black women in leadership for the first time across the board. We're talking from the Vice President's office here to St. Louis, City of St. Louis Mayor's office.
It's
we have
an
some more
exciting
results.
time, absolutely. So Prop E, that is our 1% city earnings tax, passes pretty well with a 79.4% in favor.
Proposition Y is also passed with 82% said yes.
And that is for that Prop Y was for the MSD.
Yeah, so they get their money.
Prop 1 also passed with 68.4%.
And that was also MSD related, yes, indeed.
Got it.
They had several, yes.
Yeah.
Proposition 2
With
passes.
MSD, yeah.
Well, folks are in favor with MSD. Way to go. Proposition 3 passes at 69%, yes.
Perfect. Well, now we know. Prop 4, also going right along with that. Those were some of those charter amendments
They're
from
almost a
MSD.
similar number.
62%, yeah.
And this is the last one, Prop 5 passes at 62%, yes.
Well,
congratulations, everyone.
Yeah.
For
I'm
your
feeling-
successes, for your efforts. Can we all take a moment to just exhale?
We should. I think the things that we haven't been able to update you on so far are the school board elections, but otherwise, I think we've been able to give you an update on our mayoral candidate, and we've been able to get a whole new slate of people in, or some returning incumbents, and we've got lots of wonderful things to look forward to. You know,
this is where we talk a
things.
lot about the history, and we've mentioned that and how the things were done. We keep considering Tashara Jones, Mayor Jones, and Kara Spencer progressive. Well, we are able now to not have to keep retelling history, but write a new narrative. We can write forward where we go from here. So with the door wide open and the opportunity to build, grow, and try, we have a clear example of that. She is going to also be the alderwoman of the new mayor, but I have with me, with great pride and joy, to join us, Shireen Clark Hubbard of the 26th Ward. Congratulations to you all. Very well.
Listen, you stole my thunder. You know I had to say it. You know I wanted to brag.
Oh, well, go on, break. Tell me what it means to you. Why are you so excited?
What it means to me. I could go on and on, but
Give us
you know,
what you
people
got.
that follow me know that I don't take a second of this for granted. And I'm proud to serve. And I'm humbled by the opportunity to serve. And now to be able to brag and say that I serve as the new mayor of St. Louis City's Alder Lady too. That's
Yes,
what
Alder Lady too.
I am excited.
I just got very excited. Yes,
Yeah, I am excited. Yeah, and I
Sure.
can't wait to hear from her.
Absolutely.
This evening, I can't wait to see what this means for St. Louis. This was a day for a difference. Somebody texted me earlier and say it's a great day for a difference in the city of St. Louis.
I feel
And that is why I feel the most excited about is the change, the difference, and looking forward to working towards the unity in the city of St. Louis.
Sure, as you should, as you should. Now, this day that we've arrived at was lined with many hours of toil, door knocking, letters, phone calls.
Yes.
I recall you putting on some tennis shoes and going to an abandoned building and said, I just need to see what's going on here to make sure everybody's okay. And if they're not, we can close this space so that no one else or no one can potentially get hurt. And I thought, isn't she gonna call someone? But it's that tenacity and determination and boldness, dangerous, and boldness, you know, we were all out there watching, that led to this day. It's a day of rewarding and recognizing service.
Absolutely.
You ladies serve. What do you want to set forward now that all of these things are in place? We're talking from your White House to the Capitol?
Gosh, yes. Well, the first thing I want to step forward is something that you said earlier, sis, and that's making sure the children are well. And in working to make sure the children are well, we as adults have to set the example. We do the work, we serve, we cry, we fuss, but at the end of the day, if it's for the greater good, and the greater good must include our children, then we will be well. Yeah. And I'm gonna be honest, in the beginning, me serving, as an alderwoman down in the board currently, I was working closely with the president of the Board of Aldermen, Louis Reed, who is still the president of the Board of Aldermen, and holds a very important position here in the city of St. Louis. But after the first election, after the primary, I immediately reached out to Tashara and said, let's go to work. Because I believe where, I said it in a quote, where unity is, victory is.
That's right.
And so that's how we work together. And that, in saying that, is nothing against my colleague, Kara Spencer. Still the 20th Ward alderperson, still I'm sure is gonna fight hard, if not harder, for not just the 20th Ward, but the city of St. Louis, with the new opening and the eyesight and the eyes that she's put on this running a mayoral election. So I'm just, I'm excited. It's a little bittersweet on some, but you know, at the end of the day, the city is going to go through even bigger transitions within the next 2 years with ward reduction.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Who does that, and what's that going to mean for all of the elder people that were elected tonight?
That means that they all have to run. We all have to run again in 2023. That's just what that means.
Really?
Yes. So whereas we would have normally had the four-year terms,
Sure.
now in 23 we will all be running for this new St. Louis.
Wow, and it is complete. It will be a new St. Louis, because
be a new St.
how
Louis.
will you cover an already overextended community and region with fewer people?
Well, it's still the same land, that's true, but the demographic is different in numbers.
Help us understand that.
When we had 28 wards, and I learned this, and it's still, I'm gonna be honest, it's still, again, this is one of the bittersweet points. It still doesn't make sense to me that we don't need the amount of service that we have, the amount of people serving that we have, but numbers don't lie, and when we had 28 aldermen, we had 700-some thousand people in the city of St. Louis, and now we have 200-some thousand people in the city of St. Louis.
That's a significant
reduction. It's a significant reduction.
Is this because of COVID deaths?
Absolutely
Is it because
not.
of flights?
No.
People are leaving.
We can say, we can definitely attribute some of that to flight, to decay, to intentional disinvestment. And again, these are things that we could go on and on about, but now we have to transition. You know, instead of dwelling on that, thinking back and spending and wasting our time debating about that, I feel like it's time to now, more than ever, tonight, start working together and moving forward for the city. The greater, I say it all the time, I learned it from my grandfather, Joseph Clark, who served as an alderman in the city. That's who taught me and laid in me the foundation to serve for the greater good, not for yourself, not for a few, but for the greater good. And you're gonna win some, and you're gonna lose some. Absolutely, you're gonna win some, you're gonna lose some, but you're gonna have your morals, and you're gonna feel good at the end of the night that you did what you could do.
That's what a public servant does, and that's that's the true platform.
Absolutely.
But let's talk about what do you've done a lot already, but when you talk about coming together, I'm sure there's a few things in your mind already about your ward in particular, as the city as a whole, that you really like to see happening in the next 6 months even.
Yes. Well, in the ward, in the 26th ward, it's a unique ward. It's one of the more diverse wards, and it literally has the Delmar Divine going down.
Oh, yeah.
And Divide rather going down. And now
The Divine is there, though.
Right, that was clear. Shout out to the Divine. Because the Divine is rolling, yes. I'm excited about the Divine, definitely a pillar that's going to break that Delmar Divide. But there are other structural and foundational and infrastructural things that are going to be able to now be corrected and made better for the entire city, and I'm looking forward to that, setting an example and moving forward. I'm ready to work, and I don't take this stuff personal.
We do better off trying to recommend you rest as an option with this lady.
Maybe you're right.
But you want to be an example. Because it hasn't been done, can you give me an example of what healthy, successful, productive partnerships could look like? Do you see it happening in some pockets?
I do.
Tell us what
absolutely.
it looks like so we can get a sense of the realness
Well, the key
and the opportunity.
The key to the realness, I think, in that is open and respectful communication. And anytime you jeopardize or compromise that, then that's when you open it up for the deception, the deflection, and all of the things that stop and hinder and stall progress from happening while you wasting this energy over here going back and forth about something that might have already happened on personal feelings and personal outcomes. Another group over here, trust me, is working and getting stuff done. And they don't care about y'all over here. Hey, stay over there and do that.
So how
I want to be in this group over here.
How do they get out of that funk?
It's a mindset.
Indeed.
I think it's a mindset, and I think sometimes it either happens with time or it doesn't. I'm gonna be honest, because there are some people that are just stuck, and you do the best you can, or you find ways to work around them.
I want to go back to the aldermanic boards and the shift that's going to happen. Sorry to go back and visit that. I love the conversation we're having, but when will we know what the new lines will be? And and how and who is going to determine that?
Right. Well, right now, if it goes the way it's done in the past, then the Board of Aldermen, the map will come through the Board of Aldermen, through the legislation committee, which I serve on. And then they draw the map. This actually is something that happens every 10 years as a result of census when we get our census. It happens at the federal level and the state level and at the local level. And so the difference in this map is that not only will the lines be redrawn, but they'll be reduced. And so, again, we'll go from 28 wards to 14 wards.
So we could see more than 2 candidates running for
Absolutely.
the 14 wards.
Absolutely.
So that's part of maybe how the new...
It just depends on where the lines fall within the neighborhoods, within the wards, and it has to still be equal. So where one ward
possible?
It's going to have to be. And where one ward might have stayed together because it kept their population, another 2 or 3 wards, it might take 2 or 3 of them to get together to equal the population of a ward that might have stayed together. So that's what we have to wait and see about.
How does that look for the folks on the block? So we're talking lines, we're talking regions and alder people. How will that affect, how will we feel that from our homes and seats and workspaces?
Well, I'm hoping that you all do not feel any kind of neglect, that you all don't feel that big of a transition other than that the number of your ward changed. And I mean the number of your ward, not the number of wards. But, I like to brag. I prayed about when I ran and I came up with a new 26 because of the word anew when I was praying about wanting to just be different. And now I just was like, today I started tweeting a new we in 2023 because now I can't really be stuck on 26 in 2 years. It won't be 20. Clearly, it won't be 26.
50.
No.
States rather.
No. No. It'll be 14 wards. So the highest number will be 14. And I don't know, they might, I don't know if they normally draw it from east to west, but we'll see. You just never know. And you never know what neighborhoods. One of the things that I am concerned about and want to really work for is to keep neighborhoods together.
Absolutely.
I'm glad that you said that. I'm excited. Nothing happens completely overnight, but I'm just excited for this new, tenure of things that are coming for the city of St. Louis in terms of all the things we've been talking about and the new that's happening. Thank you so much for being here. This has been an exciting conversation. I hope you get to go celebrate.
Yes.
Anytime.
Invitation is open for sure. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
All right, Alderwoman,
that
have
energy.
For being with us.
Yes.
I know. I'll tell you what, it has been an exciting night. It has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed talking with you, and I've learned a lot and about a lot of different things. But
that's going to be it for us tonight. We are going to conclude tonight's coverage of the 2021 general election. We thank you for tuning in, and congratulations to our new mayor, Tashara Jones. We are going to leave you with the results, as well as an opportunity to keep Mayor-elect Tashara Jones, and we'll leave you with the results. But you can continue to get everything St. Louis from right here at home.
You do, you can, and also you can keep up to date on all things St. Louis by following us on all of our social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to continue experiencing St. Louis. Thanks for joining us for our live coverage here at STL TV. Have a great night.